Good morning and welcome to the Payments Interviews Live. I'm joined today by Paolo Zambonini. Good morning, Paolo.
Hey, good morning, Paul. How are you doing?
I'm very well, thank you. Apart from nearly getting washed away on the school run this morning, it's another beautiful summer's day here in the New Forest. How about you?
It's great to be with you today, and thanks again for the invite.
No, you're very welcome. The payments interviews is all about interviewing leaders within payments and the fintech industry to get lessons from their career and bits of advice that they pass on for other payments leaders. Perhaps you can start by telling us a bit about yourself. You know, what problem do you solve for which people is normally a good way to approach it?
Great. Thanks, Paul. And again, thanks again for the opportunity of speaking with you today. So, I am a fintech and financial services and payments technology transformation leader. And what I do is I specialize in turning complex cross functional problems into a clear plan and then delivering that end to end. In the main, there are three kind of recurring problems and opportunities that I solve. Number one is legacy and fragmentation, where there are too many platforms and handoffs and where there are too many operational drags. Number two is risk and resilience gaps. So removing incidents, weak monitoring, and fragile processes. And number three is slow change. So where we need to remove bottlenecks, where we need to identify clear ownership, and where we need to remove decision paralysis. Those are the key things that I work on. And my key differentiator is being the bridge between the commercial leadership, and engineering reality. You know, I translate strategy into an operating model that delivers.
Okay, wow, there's quite a lot to unpack there. We will absolutely be diving into some of that. But I can take the guess that when you were at the very beginning of your career, you didn't think that you were going to be a conduit between various different departments, talking about technical problems that need solving and translating that vision in a way that everybody understands. What was it that you originally wanted to do when you first started out? What was your sort of dream?
Yeah, great question. So when I started out, I was really interested in the systems that move money and the real world impact of decision making around that. I mean, moving money and how we obtain money through our own ATMs and how we make payments as an individual is obviously almost something that occurs daily. And I was very interested in that process and how that worked. So payments became the perfect arena where milliseconds, margins, risk trust, and most importantly, customer confidence come together. And also, I just kept being pulled into, as a leader, the toughest programs because I really enjoy bringing structure to ambiguity, in making change safe, and then also, most importantly, delivering measurable outcomes. And over time, my career shaped around being the person that within an organization I was called upon when they needed transformation that actually lands and delivers value, and not just, the plans. So for me, that was a key interest, and that is how it developed over time.
Okay. Interesting. So at the heart of all of that seems to be solving problems for people and being known as the person that can get things done rather than just being able to talk a good game. That's interesting. At the beginning of your career, um, I imagine there were people that you look to as examples and role models. Perhaps you can tell us a little bit about those people and what you learned from them.
Yes, well, look, I think for me, from a leadership point of view, there were a number of people that stood out and a number of people that leaned in and gave me very sound advice, which I still lean on today. And for me, the key kind of thing is, the best leaders that I've had and that I've worked for are the ones that combine clarity, courage, cover, and also truth telling. So, even though we're talking about payments and fintech and financial services, number one, where you walk into an organization or you're working with leaders that have got a clear clarity. So, what is the vision? What is the direction? What are the priorities that need to be delivered is very, very key. Number two is courage, where decisions are met with also sometimes imperfect information, and leaders need to pivot accordingly. Number three is cover. So that's also protecting, delivery from noise. That's, protecting the team from the politics which is inevitable in an organization, and also the reality of focusing on that deliverable versus other things that may be happening in the organization, which are important, but are not necessarily vital in terms of this particular transformation we're working on. And then also is truth telling, the last one, which is, essentially understanding how risks and trade-offs are surfaced early and are dealt with, and being able to having, appropriately open discussions with team members, and then also being able to build trust with the team, with the leadership, with the board, with, in some cases, outside investors, etc. And, because at the end of the day, the judge of all of the success are the outcomes: improved stability, improved delivery, improved customer impact, and obviously value. So those were the kind of people that I learned from the most, especially early on in my career. And those are the leaders that have walked with me, and their lessons keep walking with me as I continue in my journey.
Okay, that's interesting. There's a lot in there, and I'd be very impressed, but also surprised if there was anyone in particular that displayed all of those behaviours. Is there someone key though at the beginning of your career that encapsulated that for you? Because I can remember um, the first boss I had was really key in my career, in that they saw something in me. They knew the way to manage me to get the best out of me. For example, I worked in a sales role within it was Enterprise Rent a Car was the first company I worked for. I worked in their management scheme, and my manager there knew that I was competitive, and there was someone else in the branch that was um, vying with me. And rather than constantly telling me I was doing a good job, he would point out what the other guy was doing and ask me how I felt about that, and whether I thought that that guy should be getting ahead of me on certain things. And he knew that that would make me really like up for the fight and wanting to show what I could do. Can you remember the first person that really got you and knew how to get the best out of you? And what was it that they did that was particularly good in managing you?
Yeah, sure. So I think the leader that has influenced me the most, through his example, through his leadership, I mean, I'll mention is Walter Fulker, who was my executive director at Absa Bank, which is part of the Barclays Group.
Mm,
He is an exceptional leader, and he saw the best in me, and also could help me with the areas where I needed improving. I think especially from a people management point of view, Walter was exemplary at building trust. He had a group of people that just naturally followed him because he was such a fantastic, natural, authentic leader. And with me especially, he went out of his way to guide me, to help me on the technical side of payments, but also in terms of um, managing people and improving my leadership ability, and becoming a better listener, which are the soft skills which one always needs. But Walter was and is an end-to-end, brilliant leader, not just only a brilliant payments and financial services leader and executive, but also an incredible human being. And sometimes in work life, one gets one or the other. A fantastic corporate individual, who may not be the nicest individual to work with, or vice versa. And with Walter, what surprised me and those of us who had the privilege of working with him and for him was, that not only was he brilliant at what he did, but he was a fantastic individual that impacted all of his team personally and genuinely. And, that is something that I always remember. And to this day, we still keep in touch. So that's made a lasting impression on me.
Interesting, interesting. Yeah, it can be really formative and impactful to meet someone like Walter at the beginning of your career. I wonder whether you've had an experience similar to me in that I then had a subsequent boss that was completely different to the first boss I had, um, and lacked the people soft skills side, but absolutely had the commercial mind that I think my first boss would admit he didn't quite have. He was a ruthless money making machine, the second guy, but would happily um, put that ahead of the soft skills side. And I learned, I guess I took the good from him and tried my best to improve the bad side of him because we were working so closely together. Is this someone else that you worked with that I'm certainly not going to get you to say name check someone that you thought was a terrible person that you learned good things from, but was there someone who had a very different personality that you learned someone else from that was equally as impactful as your career went on?
Um, yes. So again, look, naturally, when one works with leadership in an executive environment or leadership environment, you know, you try and take the positives out of every interaction or relationship that you have. And some, as you say, are more positive than others. And there are always going to be the challenging ones that come your way as well. Um, I certainly have had the same. I've had people who commercially, especially technically, in financial services and in, fintechs, banking, payments environments, a lot of leaders have been promoted because of their technical ability, where not all of them have developed their people skills to the same extent or may not have had the same opportunity. But in that environment, what has happened is that, again, one takes the best of those interactions. And I've also had people that have also provided me with the technical lessons that I needed and also the commercial lessons. And then where relevant and where possible, one also leads by example. So hopefully along the line, and some have mentioned that they would have potentially learned something from me about the way that I lead or my people skills or how I build trust with people and how I communicate with people to genuinely build their trust, which becomes easier in terms of getting things done. Once people understand who you are, how you operate, and you get the soft items done, then it's much easier for them to want to follow you or to want to be part of a program that you're leading because they want to be part of a success. So you take the good from whence it comes and you deal with the challenges as they arrive.
Sure. I think there's something you touched on there, which is similar to a maxim that I learned in my career that I tried to use when I led, which was nobody cares what you know until they know that you care. And I think there's definitely something in that. I also used it in an interview once, and that totally got me the job because the line manager particularly liked it. Okay, so from the people that you've mentioned, and perhaps some others as well, what's the best bit of advice that you've received that that's really stayed with you through your career and your leadership style, I guess?
Yeah, look, I think the first one is, it's warm and fuzzy, but it is what it is. It's just to be authentic. And again, whether it's a technical role, a commercial role, a sales role, a product role, is just to lead as authentically as you can,
Hmm.
and so that people can see, who you are, that you understand individuals, that you build relationships that are authentic, because the technical pieces are far easier to learn than the people management side of things. And that is something that I personally had to spend a lot of time working on myself, from the start of my career. And hopefully people have seen that progression where, that has made been a big improvement. And I enjoy that because I enjoy people, because at the end of the day, you can't deliver any kind of solution or outcome or commercial requirements on your own without a team. And the team success is our success. And I've got an abundance mindset, and that's how I work. I've always worked that, the team needs to win, because if they do, then they want to be part of the next program. And, there's a level of retention and respect and collaboration. So also what I would say is, making outcomes your language is very important. If you speak customer impact, risk reduction, commercial value, alignment becomes far easier. And if you've got, a level of successful outcomes that have preceded you that people can see, then it makes it a lot easier for people to want to be part of your team. And then it's a question of building trust with them and trying to build authentic trust as quickly as possible. And then also, when you're dealing with fintech technology, financial services, we all want to get things done quickly. Um, but also we work in a very regulated environment. There's a level of risk in terms of risk prevention and compliance, which we have to obviously comply with. But also what you want to do over time is acknowledge all of that, understand all of that, but also try to earn the right to go fast where appropriate, build in the right the right controls, the right monitoring, the correct run books, and accelerate safety. Because at the end of the day, you always have commercial pressure in delivering a transformation program, inverted commas, as quickly as possible, either because of shareholder pressure, board pressure, executive pressure. And you need to learn how to do that with all the correct controls in place, and then also to try and do it, inverted commas, to meet the timelines, but also to ensure that you've done it safely and correctly.
Okay, thank you for that. One thing that is it an interesting question that's just occurred to me is that as someone that's led sales themselves, I've worked with marketing teams, finance teams, operations teams. There's lots of truisms about salespeople that get spouted in terms of over promising, being unrealistic with what you need, asking for far too much of this, and getting getting clients excited about stuff that's not ready yet. What do you what would you like to see from senior salespeople that you deal with in order to make cooperating with sales a pleasure rather than a hardship? So you would have worked with salespeople in your career that you thought that is exactly the way salespeople should behave. What is it that makes your life easier?
Yeah, look, that's a great question, because there's always that creative tension between, especially product and sales, where, product wants something pushed, sales want something delivered. Sales believe they can't sell until you've got this widget done, etc. So there's always this creative tension. And I think the key thing, is, and everybody gets it, because there's pressure everywhere to deliver, to meet targets, et cetera, et cetera. But I think the one key thing is that there is another truism, where, for example, let's just ship something quickly and then we can fix it later, especially when it comes down to a payment product or a payment initiative. Sometimes sales folk, have that pressure where let's just get the product launched and let's just get that into the market. For many industries, that does work. You don't need to worry about perfection for the first release. Perfection can come later. But for payments, later becomes incidents, customer harm, scheme or regulatory pressure. So many sales teams understand that challenge, but not all of them do. And there are times when you just can't ship it and we'll fix it later. It has to be done properly from the outset. And I think those who may be listening who've got a compliance or security or a regulatory background, probably we've all got scars on our backs when things have happened like that. But the key thing is to try and, reassure customer from a trust point of view. And that's the key thing that I would say is, we've got to be very cautious in terms of how quickly things are launched to make sure that from a reputational point of view and a regulatory point of view, we keep that trust that's been built ongoing.
Okay. So you would say that the kind of gold standard that you would hope for from a sales team is patience and understanding, essentially.
Especially when it comes to financial services and payment products and initiatives, that would be key. And again, there's always pressure for faster delivery of product and technology. And also, by the way, technology alone doesn't solve everything. You know, um, if incentives, process, and ownership are broken, the platform becomes an expensive layer, and therefore you can't move new products or new services faster. So that's why we've got to be, bullish in terms of what can be delivered, but at the same time realistic in terms of what can be done now versus later.
Okay. Interesting. Thank you for that. Well, I guess in closing, I'd be interested in getting your thoughts on how you think payments is changing and over the next, horizon. Things change so fast in this industry. What are the bits that you're most excited about out of some of the key themes that are being discussed at the moment, and what impact you think they're going to have?
Another great question, Paul. And look, I've always had an innovation background, and throughout my career, in different shapes or form, I've had responsibility and accountability for innovation. So, this is something where I'm always very excited about. So, I think number one on my list is, AI becoming, moving from, I call it insight to execution. Right now, AI appears on many PowerPoint decks, but not really in reality in terms of, how it's actually deployed. So everybody talks about agentic AI, but what does it actually mean in terms of future scenarios? So for me, what that means is that I think authentically it's going to become more deployed in automation, especially with regards to fraud operations, disputes, onboarding, customer support, and reconciliation. And what will happen, especially banks, financial services, the winners are the ones who are going to be able to embed AI as part of the de facto into their workflows with controls and not just use AI as a bolt on as a tool. That is something which I see going to be happening more and more, where it's embedded in the DNA of a technology process as opposed to just being a bolt on or a nice to have. Also, I think, in the second one I wanted to mention is always on payments or for a stronger operating model. So in many regions, real-time payments have been going on, for decades. In other regions around the world, it's nascent or not really instant. But real-time rails are much needed from a 24/7 monitoring point of view. And I think that is going to become even more important as time goes on. I think
Okay.
also what will happen is, I've recently completed a major technology transformation program for a leading payments um, global operator. And, again, I can see that modular stacks, continue to accelerate. And what that means is orchestration, issuer processing, treasury, and risk will be composed more flexibly. And again, the differentiation there is going to be that integration quality, data discipline, and operational maturity will naturally need to improve. And then I think another one is that fraud and consumer protection stay front and center. With all the great things that are going to be developing, I think we need to expect continued pressure on reimbursement expectations, prevention, and also better identity, behavioral analysis, and real-time decisioning, especially when a payment needs to be authenticated or made, where a identity needs to be checked. And I think that area is going to become even more important as AI take hold. I think lastly for me is the cross-border innovation will become even more important, where again, the focus is going to shift from concrete corridors and use cases um, and become more B2B enabled. So again, cost reduction, speed improvement, and transparency within those B2B flows are going to become even more important.
Okay. Brilliant. Thank you very much. I think that it sounds like there's quite the storm going on your side. So apologies if anybody struggled to hear the last part of what Paolo said, but I'll do my best to clear up the audio for those of you that are listening on a recorded version. Um, Thank you very much, Paolo. I really appreciate your time and really interesting to get your insights. Um, for those that want to contact you to find out a bit more about you, Paolo, where's the best place to find you?
Look, my details are in LinkedIn, and also, Paul, people are very welcome to contact me
Mhm.
via yourself,
Yeah,
and
of course.
we're very able to reach me through you.
Brilliant. Got it. Thank you very much. Thank you everyone for tuning in and listening. And if anybody listening needs some help finding great people within the world of payments, then please either drop me a DM or an email or just comment underneath here. But thank you very much for your time and look forward to the next one. Thanks, Paolo.
Cheers, everybody. Thanks, Paul.